Just taking a lot of shots over the bow, bringing you the full circle, then I bring you back around. I was getting ready for the Armageddon now. North Korea unveils a new nuclear warheads as a U.S. air carrier arrives in the south. We'll talk about it here in just a second. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. Over the bow, bringing you the full circle, then I bring you back around. I was getting ready for the Armageddon now. I will tell you what I did and deal and exactly how China. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Just to start you off, North Korea unveils a new nuclear warhead as the U.S. air carrier arrives in the south. It said that North Korea unveiled new, smaller nuclear warheads and vowed to produce more weapons-grade nuclear material to expand the country's arsenal, State News KCNA said. It said the KCNA released photos of the warheads dubbed the Hwasan 31S as leader Kim Jong-un visited the Nuclear Weapons Institute, where he inspected new tactical nuclear weapons and technology for mounting warheads on ballistic missiles, as well as nuclear counterattack operation plans. So there's a lot of news coming out about, of course, North Korea having problems with the South and this whole event going on with these drills. These drills have seemingly gone on for 5 years straight. Obviously, they've done it for longer than that, but it used to be where we would talk about this once a year when they did the drill, but it seems like they are constantly drilling. They are constantly practicing. So I wonder if maybe Kim is right. Maybe they are going to take him out, or maybe they already have, and maybe this is just a big distraction. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. We'll go over this, and we'll actually touch back on this in just a second, but I do want to remind you, if you are new here, remember you can always go over to marfooglenews.com, and you can find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document. When you go over to the website, you'll see that you can find us by just checking the thumbnail, and then you'll find this show, To a City Near You, with all of the sources. A full bibliography is available for you, so you can find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we reference, plus a whole lot more. At the very end, there is web-only content. That is the stuff that we cannot fit into the show, or the stuff that would get you in a bar fight if you started talking about. So make sure to go check that section. It is packed full of stuff, including some videos tonight and yesterday's show. You should definitely check out the last 2 days. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So we have a lot to go over. We're going to go back. All right. So they're unveiling this new carrier that they're unveiling new nuclear warheads, and we're sending a nuclear carrier. Is it much to worry about? Well, I think it's less worrying as, all of the Navy moving. Today I tweeted this morning. I don't know if anybody saw that, but we had something go over us that I absolutely could not explain. I went to Flight Radar. All I could find was a UPS plane and a smaller, like, Cessna jet. And it was a jet, but there was no way. And it was at, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 feet or something like that. This morning, I thought we were going to get nuked. I don't know if anybody else in Washington had the same thing, but it was the loudest sound I have ever heard in my lifetime. It woke me up out of a dead sleep, and it continued for 3 minutes as it flew around. And it reminded me of a jet, but much louder. So if any of you guys know what the heck that was, There was nothing on flight radar. I even did the playback feature where I went back even time before that, and I went around the entire area. It was above Seattle and surrounding areas. It was so loud that I'm sure much of that area heard it. So if you heard that this morning at I think it was 6:30 or 6:20 a.m. or something, or if you got that caught on video camera, let me know. I would love to hear and see it again. That thing was so loud, I honestly thought that was a missile going through the sky. I thought that we were going to get hit here in Seattle. But again, there's all sorts of things going on. All of the people that follow the flight radar have been saying that it's just the weirdest activity. So we'll probably go into that. We'll have, there's a Foogle family member that I know that follows it really closely, and he's put together quite a bit of interesting stuff on that. So Dex, let's go over to, so first of all, the several barges loose on Ohio River in Louisville, one carrying methanol. So this is now another kind of incident in the Ohio River, which is already kind of reeling from other disasters. What is up with this?
So apparently 10 of 11 barges broke loose from a tugboat in the river. And I guess the biggest problem is that one of them, I guess some of them are stuck, but one of them is potentially underwater and carrying about 1,400 tons of methanol. So it's a toxic alcohol. It's used as an used industrially as a solvent, pesticide, alternative fuel source. It's used for lots of different things. Probably not something you really want in the water. They didn't say it's actually leaking, but they did say they thought that barge was sinking. They did break free. So this is kind of relatively new news. This just seemed to be breaking in the last couple of hours this evening. So we'll start to hear more, I guess, as the news rolls in from that area.
And by the way, there's comments here saying that they heard it and they believed it was a jet. By the way, so if you heard that, somebody said sonic boom. No, it was way louder, and it was long. It was like 4 minutes. It was like it was flying over. I mean, it was, and I know that some planes, depending on the weather, the sound will carry more. Like I've had big, those huge cargo jets or the cargo planes that go over you that are just massive. Most people have heard that, and those rumble. Those you go outside for and go, whoa, that thing's huge. This was so much louder. I cannot describe how loud it was. It was so loud I was surprised my whole family didn't wake up. I woke up for the beginning of it. It was so loud, and it just kept going, and I could not see it. So then I went to flight radar, and there was just a UPS thing, and the UPS wasn't a big cargo thing. It was a smaller plane. There was no explanation. And then the Cessna was a smaller jet, but there's absolutely no way. I've seen the kind of Cessna jet it was like a little 8 to 10 seater thing. There's no way. Even if it was flying right over the house, it wouldn't sound like that. It was earth rumbling. I mean, it was just insane. So my guess is that they responded to something this morning. Maybe it was just a false alert or something. I don't know. But somebody definitely was flying over, and it was big. This was one day after there was like a shotgun clash that sounded like it was God. So if you're in the Seattle area and you've been hearing weird sounds, let me know. And check your Ring cameras for stuff like that. Send it to us at marfooglenews.com/playmyvideo. As far as the barges, we're just having incident after incident after incident. And then a tornado spawning storms may get worse due to warming. It says America will probably get more killer tornado and hail spawning supercells as the world warms, according to a new study that warns the lethal storms will edge eastward to strike more frequently in the more populous southern states like Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. The supercell storm that devastated Rolling Fork, Mississippi, is a single event that cannot be connected to the Great Change, but it fits that projected and more dangerous pattern, including more nighttime strikes in southern region with more people. Poverty and vulnerable housing than where storms hit last century, and the season will start a month earlier than it used to. The study in the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society predicts a nationwide 6.6 increase in supercells and a 25.8% jump in the area and time the strongest supercells twist and tear over land under a scenario that moderate levels of future warming by the end of the century. And it says, but in certain areas in the South, an increase is much higher. That includes Rolling Fork, where the study authors project an increase of 1 supercell a year by the year 2100. Supercells are nature's ultimate storms, so-called finger of God, whoppers that are the dominant producers of significant tornadoes and hail, said lead author Walker Ashley, a professor of meteorology and disaster geography at Northern Illinois University. It says tall, anvil-shaped and sky-filling supercells have a rotating, powerful updraft of wind that can last for hours. Of course, supercells are what they talk about in all of the tornado movies, like Twister. That's what all of the storm chasers end up chasing. They chase the supercells. It says supercells spawned the 2013 Moore, Oklahoma tornado that killed 51 people, the 2011 Joplin, Missouri tornado that took the lives of 161, and the 2011 outbreak and I love how they call it outbreak, that perished more than 320 people in Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. So what they're saying here is by 2100, it's going to be absolute chaos, and weather will be absolutely nuts. Everybody has a debate going on this, is what is causing it and who is causing it, if not what. Most people, though, agree that things are changing. They just disagree on how it is happening or what is causing it. But most people see that things are getting absolutely crazy. California this year has seen just absolutely insane weather on top of years of fires, suspicious ones. There's been just absolute nuts things happening all over the country. The crazy freeze that we had, the polar vortexes that broke apart like 3 times in a month or something like that, wasn't it? And ended up causing freezing temperatures in almost every state of the United States. So what do you guys think is going on here? Let me know in the comments down below. Dex, what do you think it is? Why is everything changing? And again, I think what we can focus on is, I guess, just making sure that we all stay safe, right?
Certainly. I mean, look, the folks that were in Mississippi for this recent one, it was over a mile wide, ran like almost 60 miles across a path, and 25 people perished. I mean, that's a huge event. And if we're expecting to see an uptick in those, however they are made, Mother Nature, changes in temperatures, whatever you want to call it, or musical instruments from the north, however it's made, it's still going to affect the people on the ground. And those people that, like, entire towns were completely wiped out. People were hiding out in, freezers, in anything they could try and save themselves in. So yeah, being prepared and having a plan and thinking about that, if you're going to live in one of these areas, and a lot of us do, and making sure that you know what to do in this type of an event. And if you just move to an area and you're not familiar with tornadoes, and it happens to be in your area, you might want to study up on it and understand what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and what those sirens sound like.
You guys probably heard me tell this story, but in the 2001 earthquake, the Nisqually earthquake, that was like a 6.3 or 6.7, depending on which agency you talk to. But when that happened, the road outside my school was literally doing the wave. The TV in the classroom was shaking, and my my teacher, which I can't remember, he's from a southern town, or somewhere in the Midwest, and my short teacher, little tiny guy, just ran out the door, and we had these 10-foot windows right next to us, and we literally just watched him run by screaming and yelling and just left us. This was in 9th grade, I think it was. And afterwards, he said that, he goes, "Oh, I've dealt with tornadoes, I've dealt with hurricanes, I've dealt with everything, but I've never dealt with an earthquake, and I just panicked." And he just left us there. as students, he just left us. He didn't tell us to get under our desk. He didn't tell us anything. And I just think about how crazy it is that folks on the West Coast or that, that replant themselves in the Midwest, they wouldn't know what to do in this case. Like where a tornado happens, what the heck do you do? There's so much. That's why I think that it would be good for us to do videos on regional disasters, not just like SHTF stuff, but how to deal in different regional disasters that you may experience. Because I know most of you have probably moved at some point in your life, and a lot of you have probably moved states. You go to California, you have to worry about earthquakes. If you go to the Midwest, you have to worry about tornadoes and things like this. Somebody from, say, Seattle, if they moved to Tennessee or something, I wouldn't know what to do in a tornado. I wouldn't know where to stand, where to go. So I definitely want to look into that and do more videos on how to actually deal with that and have a solution. But if you have any suggestions, if you are in a tornado, what would you do? How many have you been in? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you end up doing. Not everybody has a storm shelter. That's a thing too. Do you guys get in the bathtub like they say? Do you get in a doorway? Does that even help in a tornado? In an earthquake, it does. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments down below. And I'm praying for everybody that's in that area. That's the thing. We looked at Alabama and Tennessee and all of these areas that have cheap rent and cheap houses and things like that. It's crazy how affordable housing is in places like West Virginia. But I believe that's for a reason. They have these extreme weather events, and apparently they're only going to get worse. And then meatball from long extinct mammoth created by food firm. Yeah, it says a mammoth meatball has been created by cultivated meat company resurrecting the flesh of a long extinct animal. It says the project aims to demonstrate the potential of meat grown from cells without the slaughter of animals and to highlight the link between large-scale livestock production and the destruction of wildlife and the crisis. It says the mammoth meatball was produced by Vow Food. Vow, really? An Australian company which is taking a different approach to cultured meat. It said that there's scores of companies working on replacements for conventional meat, such as chicken, pork, and beef, but Vow Foods is aiming to mix and match cells from unconventional species to create a new kind of meat. It says the company has already investigated the potential of more than 50 species, including alpaca, buffalo, crocodile, kangaroo, peacocks, and different types of fish. The first cultivated meat to be sold to diners will be Japanese quail, which the company expects will be in restaurants in Singapore this year. It says we, quote, have a behavior change problem when it comes to meat consumption. The goal is to transition a few billion meat eaters away from eating conventional animal protein to eating things that can be produced in electrified systems. They want to make this meat in a lab. And I'm sorry, people need to, speak up. The problem is, and I could see, folks taking the side of, oh, well, this is better for the environment. It's better for animals. And especially if you're a vegan or vegetarian, then I get it. You don't want to see animals hurt. But I would think that even you probably don't want to eat animals, but you probably also don't want to eat fake animals either. You don't want to eat this manufactured stuff that they make in a lab. And again, they can add whatever the heck they want. They're required to put, the ingredients or whatever this and that, but most people don't believe that. Look at how many shady things companies have done in the years for a better bottom line. Think about the stuff that they could pack into this. And it's not like people really trust in what is going into our bodies. Remember, they want to bring down how many people are on this earth by 10 or 15%. Seems like this would be a good way to do that too, or at least long term. I wonder if I just hypothetically wonder if cancer rates are going to go up or new cancers are going to be created, new sorts of, diseases and things like this are going to pop up out of these grown meats. That's what I have a question about. They're literally making meat from nothing. What do you guys think? Will you eat this mammoth meatball? Dex, are you going to touch the mammoth meatballs?
No, I don't touch any any lab grown meat, let alone meatballs. So that's off limits for me at this time. But I would say they're going to sneak it in, and I think the way it's going to happen is you're going to see probably the prisons will have it first. The public school systems, taco meat and burgers will probably be lab grown. And then the fast food chains will start to do it to protect their bottom line. Because what you're going to see is the cost of a Big Mac is going to go to like $25, and nobody wants to pay that. So they'll use lab grown meat, and they can sell a Big Mac for like, $10, and everybody will be happy with that. So I think, and people won't know, or they won't pay attention. Is probably what'll happen. That's how it'll sneak in, and then before you know it, the beef. We used to joke that the beef isn't real when you go to a restaurant, but now it really will be true. It will be, eventually be beef that's not coming from a living animal, but a lab.
I don't want to say something that's not true, but I thought at one point Taco Bell, their beef inside their beef stuff, I thought somebody tested it and it was like 0% meat or something like that. I don't know if that is true, so I don't want to put anybody off from Taco Bell, but I think that they've already kind of done that. You would see like Hot Pockets and things like that replace meat with stuff like this. You'll probably, like they say, they're going to have it at fancy restaurants, right? If they can get the in crowd, the culturally, the trendy people to eat it, then maybe they think it will, pass down and everybody will be like, oh, well, it's a delicacy or something. I don't know. And then before we move on, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/friends. You have all of the mods over there. They're doing an awesome job. Thank you, RJL. I see you in there. Ilea, thank you. Everybody, thank you for modding. Make sure to go check out all of the awesome mods over there on Friends of Marfoogle at marfooglenews.com/friends. And then thank you, Carol. I appreciate the super chat there. Thank you. Fairies of Venus, thank you so much for the massive support. You don't have to do that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for supporting Independent. I appreciate you. And then Ryan B, thank you, Adam, Dex, and Mods. I appreciate you, Ryan, and thank you for joining us. France braces for violence in a new wave of pension protests. So if you haven't been following this, this is the 10th day of unrest in France. And many of the people we talk to believe that this is going to happen in a city near you pretty soon here, because there's a lot of changes planned and many people don't even know about the changes. What we follow on a daily basis are things that people don't even know about yet. And I bet you if they did and knew that it was real and not some crazy person on the internet, talking about, every one of the changes that they want to make, there will be pushback. And when they make giant changes like this, people push back hard. A lot of folks are looking at the people of Paris and actually rooting them on because they're pushing back, and they're pushing back hard. It was up to over 800,000 people, close to 1 million people went to the streets 10 days straight. They're pushing back. It reminds me, a lot of the scenes that we're seeing reminds me of the U.S. back during CV. Only this time, the people are actually, they're fighting for something I believe is a good cause. It says that France's government unfurled ramped up security measures and warnings that violent demonstrations, hold on here, let me fix this, intend to destroy, to injure, and to forcefully take people's lives, as trade unions launched a new flurry of marches and strikes on Tuesday against the pension reform that have triggered an intense months-long firestorm of protests. Fears that violence could mar demonstrations planned across the country prompted what Interior Minister Gerald Damanin described as an unprecedented deployment of 13,000 officers. If you haven't seen some of the images, the certain buildings that they've been protecting, they have human walls that are like 10 rows deep. So it's a literal wall of people made out of human beings and officers in riot gear. It says he said that more than 1,000, quote, radical troublemakers, some from overseas, could latch on to planned peaceful marches in Paris and in other cities. They have come to destroy, to injure, and to take the lives of police officers and gendarmes. I believe Dex, do you know what the gendarmes is, or could look it up? Is that I'm assuming the officers of some sort? It says,
yeah, I believe it is. I'll look it up.
Their goals have nothing to do with the pension reform. Their goals are to destabilize our Republican institutions and bring blood and fire down on France, the minister said on Monday, detailing the policing measures. Union leaders and political foes of President Emmanuel Macron blame his government for protest violence that has flared in recent weeks, saying that his pension reforms are sparking it. Critics also allege that police officers are using excessive force against protesters. A police oversight body is investigating multiple claims of wrongdoing by officers. I just want to point out there was like a 75-year-old man in a video that I just saw today that kept tapping the shield and saying, take that down and talk to us like human beings. And then the guy just he pushed the guy really hard. Then he came back and he said, that's not right. And then he just sprayed him right in the eyes with the spray. I can say that I relate to that in the WT&O. I was just a kid and our school let us go down, and they were a very progressive school. They said, we won't mark you absent if you want to go protest. But because before it started, everybody thought, oh, it's just a peaceful protest. So I went down there because we had the day off, and I ended up getting tear gassed. I ended up getting rubber bulleted, and I ended up getting hit with different objects. So it was pretty bad, and tased. Forgot about that. And I was just a kid that was down there, and they were just basically hitting everybody and anybody. Dex, go ahead.
It's just another term for what we would think of as police, but they typically are responsible for small towns and rural areas.
Oh, okay. So, but basically they're bringing them in as well.
Think of it as like, we say police and we say sheriff's department, and the sheriff's department usually covers counties and small towns that don't have incorporation where police is in the town.
So what I want to know, and if anybody here is from France, is there other things in this other than the age to reform? Is there other hidden things that people are talking about there that the media is not covering? Is there other changes as part of this reform that we don't know about in, just getting the main kind of top layer off of this? Is there something locally that is part of this reform that people are also pushing back on? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments down below. Again, I would love to know more about it and about why. And then Arrow hypersonic missile test was unsuccessful, U.S. Air Force admits. So not good news for us. We have covered there's been a bunch of failures in the last 5 years. It says that the U.S. Air Force's March 13th test of a hypersonic weapon was, quote, not a success, the service secretary told lawmakers on Tuesday. Frank Kendall indicated that the AGM-183A air-launched rapid response weapon program may be in jeopardy. The service, he said, is more committed to HACM, the Hypersonic Attack Cruise Missile, the service's other major hypersonic weapon program, at this point in time than we are to Arrow. The Arrow effort has struggled a little bit in its testing program, Kendall told the House Appropriations Committee Defense Panel during a hearing on the fiscal 2024 budget request. He said an ultimate decision on whether to continue with the program could come as part of the fiscal year 25 budget process next year, following a study of the failed March test and possibly 2 more test launches. Hypersonic weapons travel at speeds topping Mach 5 and are highly maneuverable, making them difficult to track and shoot down. China and Russia have invested considerable resources in developing these weapons for their militaries, and several U.S. lawmakers have expressed concern that the country is not doing enough to field its own hypersonic capabilities. So one thing, there's a lot of people that believe that the U.S. is absolutely ahead in everything. We know that they are behind, according to the militaries, in certain technological areas, AI, and about 37 out of 44 key areas. China is actually ahead of the U.S. That's according to the State Department and the Pentagon. As far as this goes, do you think that there are people on the inside that are actually somehow slowing down our progress, meanwhile helping the progress of others? Spies and things like this coming through with information, stealing our information on what we're doing, and then sabotaging some of our efforts. Dex, it's not really good news to hear that we failed another test.
No, it's not at all. And I think, the big crazy part of this is that, we always talk about like, hey, we have great tech, or we've got all this tech that is hidden that we don't see the light of day for 20 to 30 years. But at the end of the day, like, go look at all the military ships that are out there. How many of them have hypersonics sitting on them ready to launch? None of them. They don't. Like, you can say we've got it, but if it's sitting in a research lab, or it's been proof of concept, or it's been, done something with JPL or one of these, fancy labs in Boeing or somewhere else, fine. But it's not in production. It's not like it's accessible. It's not like it's sitting in equipment ready to be used. So I think that's the big difference here. And I think definitely one of those areas, it looks like that this particular program isn't going well, but we do have other programs that are, like the cruise missile version of the hypersonics, which is where they said they wanted to, put more of their money or more of their time towards, because they're having much more success there than with this particular project. So, I'm always in favor of, cut bait quickly. If you know something's not working, don't just keep throwing good money at it just to fix a problem that's not going to be fixable. Move on if you need to, and move to the next project.
Yep. Well, and it sounds like the other one is doing well, but this one isn't. And then the Taliban posted photos of hundreds of U.S. military vehicles it said were abandoned in the chaotic pullout of Afghanistan and now form part of its army. Before we go over that, I do want to remind you guys, if you want to get our discount on top of the sale that Energy is doing, you have to act in the next couple days. When you go through any of our affiliates, what it does is it gives us a small commission and it gives you a big discount, but they have never done our discount on top of theirs. So this is the first time, and we don't know if they'll do it again, but it is very awesome that they are. If you haven't looked into solar generators, they're silent. They do not take $5 a gallon gas, and of course, they get all of their power from the sun. So you can't really get much better than that. If you get a package, you can get packages with different numbers of solar panels. I definitely recommend at least getting 4, but 2 would just be fine if you are just getting it for extra power use and things like that. But again, these are modular. The Flex 1500 and the new Flex Tactical, which is up for pre-order, these can be expanded up to 96 batteries. The new Tactical now has a built-in battery heater for extreme cold use, and it was actually designed by the Air Force Research Laboratory. So that one's, again, got a big discount on it, huge discount, and that's on top of our special discount that we always get. So again, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/energy if you want power and to keep it stealth. Solar is the way to go. So go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. Again, I don't think you will be disappointed. The X2 will ship out the fastest if you need something right away. But again, you will probably have to wait for either the Flex 1500 or for the Tactical, and it's well worth the wait. When they get that lithium, they are then making the product as it goes and shipping it out. You don't want to settle for something just to get it a couple months earlier for yourself to go get yourself a cheapo made in China brand, which might be turned off or something in the event of an emergency. These, again, the reason why you want to go with Energy, they're built like tanks and they're reliable. If you have a situation where your power is out for numerous days or even months, you will most definitely want something that's going to work day in and day out. Now you can turn the Flex 1500 into a UPS system or an uninterrupted power supply with a mod. Just like Legos, these stack, and there is no external cords that have to connect them. They have the connectors on the top and the bottom. That's why this is so cool. It can be modded, and the actual structural performance of it can be changed to fit your needs. So go over to marfooglenews.com/energy, help support independent news, and you end up getting a huge discount right now for the next couple days. So make sure to go check that out. And then as far as this goes, the disaster of the pullout, and apparently they still have a bunch of our stuff, which it would have been nice if we could have sent all of that to UKR, since now it's already rode off, right? Dex, it's crazy that the Taliban literally has, $700-something million worth of our stuff. What was the number on it? It was something crazy. $7 billion. $7 billion. I did not realize it was that much. $7 billion worth of gear.
Yeah, this is astronomical, and a lot of this stuff we were told was destroyed or at least rendered inoperable. Now, I don't know if that just meant they went and yanked the battery cable off of a Humvee and said, okay, it's inoperable, but it looks like they've actually gotten much of this equipment up and running. And some of it's probably rather simple to get up and running, things like Humvees, but still, that's a lot of equipment that is now, in the hands of our adversaries and probably being sold for money, funding those people to do more damage with whatever they're going to do with the money. But then the people that get this equipment are probably using it, more than likely using it against us. So just imagine, in the future, we're going to have our soldiers driving down the road, going head to head with their own equipment that they're used to seeing. And it's like, what's that doing here? That's going to be the crazy thing. So I'm sure that has probably happened already. I'm sure these vehicles have made their way in various different transports to other parts of the world. So
we're actually looking at a picture of Ahmed's used military depot. Apparently there's some big deal about Sunday. I don't know. It was rough translation. But this is just nuts. And one thing I don't get, and it's so fishy, is the way that we pulled out. Why did they do it this way, where they left all of this stuff? Why? Was it all for political reputation of like, oh, we got all of our people out of there? Did they know something was going to happen? Like what? Dex, do you get what I mean? Like how could they have possibly left this much stuff? They slowly, over 20 years, brought all of this stuff in. And then overnight, they were like, we got to get out of there. Why in the world would they leave this? Unless it was on purpose. There's no way. Why aren't we sending in people right now to go get that stuff? That's what I don't understand. That is valuable equipment and is most definitely extremely valuable to the horrible people that got it. That's what I do not understand about this.
It's not something that the military industrial complex wants to have back. They would rather produce new stuff. They would rather the taxpayers pay for new stuff. So it's easier for them to sort of say, we've spent 20 years bringing all this equipment over here. We're not going to spend 20 years bringing it back. Let's just leave it behind. We'll just order more. We come from the land of our taxpayers pay for everything. So they'll write us a giant check. And that's exactly what we do. And it's unfortunate. I would have, look, that's a financial decision. And if they made that right or wrong, then maybe what you should have done was say, wipe out that equipment. If you're not going to load it up and bring it home, you're not going to take the time to salvage it out or sell it to somebody that's appropriate to own it, then destroy it and actually really destroy it. Don't just, yank a cable on it or say you did, but you didn't. That would be the sane thing to do, in my opinion. But yeah, we were in a hurry, I guess, or for whatever, or there's some other plan, some great big plan that's going on that they wanted it there and they wanted to give all of this billions of equipment to this country.
And it's like, if they're all lined up like this in one spot, we have the ability to go and airstrike this right now. They could airstrike it from a container somewhere in the middle of nowhere. They could airstrike this and get rid of it right now. Why haven't they? Because they've worked out peace or something with the Taliban? What is going on? They left the German shepherds behind to be perished. That's horrible. Is that true? Chai Dan mucked things up. Let's see. Disgusting, says Maureen Brute. Close to $100 billion for UKR, but not $500 million to fix water pipes in Flint. It's an excellent point. It's probably a strategic forward base agreement with the Taliban. It's like a secret. That would make more sense than what they've said. Yeah, that's true, says Badgerworthy. Yeah. What I said beyond reparations, still owned. How do you think lithium batteries are produced? Look it up. Well, it depends on where the lithium is from. There's all sorts of different places lithium comes from. And yes, there are good chunks of lithium that comes from horrible conditions where they take that stuff, I forget the Well, lithium. Yeah. The lithium mines. But just like gold or steel or ore or anything else, there's mines all over the world. Diamonds. I mean, think about that. RGL Harris says there is a plan. Mingle64 says take President JB to Afghanistan and drop him off. Yeah, too bad. Too bad you can't leave them back there, right? Let's see here. Missiles cost a lot of money too. That's a lot of missiles to destroy all that junk. I mean, look at it. They're in one used Ahmed's parking lot right there. Just boom. I mean, shoot. Big enough missile, you only need one. Just saying. And then video of fighter jets shooting down UFOs over Alaska is classified, won't be released. Dex, are we talking about disclosure here, or is this some sort of like joke?
Well, this is the balloon, the one that they took down over Alaska, but they're not releasing that one. We've seen footage of some of the other ones. We've obviously seen the big one. We've seen one where there was like a selfie picture of the pilot, a U-2 pilot, and you see a balloon in the background. That may have still been the big one, if I remember correctly. I don't know that we've seen the pictures of the other ones, but this one in particular, they're saying, nope, it's going to remain classified. I don't know why. Of course, it's called a UFO because, or UAP in their book, but it's an unidentified object because we don't know what it is, but they are not showing it to us and they won't let us see it.
Which is super sus, and people are calling BS on that. They didn't show us anything but that first balloon, and then they gave us little scraps of everything else. That whole 2-week, 3-week period that everybody was obsessed with the balloons, it was like one big just circus. It was an absolute circus. It says the footage of the high altitude objects and the takedown of those objects exists. A Defense Department spokesman told Fox News Digital Wednesday, adding that none of that footage has been cleared for release and the footage remained classified. One thing I want to point out is the Pentagon just put out this paper with that new office, the whatever office deals with the UAPs and the UFOs now. But they put out the thing with that Harvard professor, Avi Loeb, or so, I think that's his name. They put out a thing saying that that actually mentioned Oumuamua, and it said that it suggested that it's possible a mothership could be sending ships to the world. To this day, they still cannot figure out how Oumuamua, and they said a couple weeks ago that they solved it, and it's still a theory, that how Oumuamua came right by Earth and then stepped on the gas and left our solar system. When that happened, when the whole thing was happening with that, Avi Loeb actually suggested that that was some sort of UFO. They nicknamed it Scout, and I actually didn't realize Oumuamua isn't just Scout, it's the first messenger of many to arrive. That's what it means. The first of many messengers to arrive. And I was thinking, that's just freaking weird. I knew it meant, everybody said Scout, and that's just the rough translation of it, but that's like super specific, and that was named it right away. And now they're saying this whole mothership thing, sending in, ships to observe us. Is there a real false, invasion that is going to happen? It sounded so crazy a few years ago, but now it doesn't sound as crazy. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Why is there all this talk about UFOs? Is it just a circus, a distraction? Let me know what you think and tell me why. China deploys weapons capable of wiping U.S. space capabilities. PLA's phenomenal rise alarms Pentagon. We could have told you they are just making these huge leaps and bounds. At the same time, there are people in our own systems that are holding back things that we can do. The increasing militarization of space with technological developments such as anti-satellite missiles, ground-based directed energy, and orbit interception capacities in general, and China's phenomenal rise in the space sector in particular has become a global concern now. The concern is evident from the recent remarks by the world's important militaries and space agencies, and it says India's chief of the air staff, Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary, expressed the fear on March 21st that a race to weaponize the space has already started, and the day is not far when the next war would spread across all domains: land, sea, air, cyber, and space. So every military in the world has warned about a great war. Space Force, the commanders, and some of the highest ranking members of the Space Force have said publicly, and nobody even blinked an eyelash at it, that there is a war in space and that it's already started. Now this is India's chief of air staff saying that there won't be a day, and it won't be far, where it's going to be land, sea, air, cyber, and space, describing the space as the ultimate high ground and emphasizing the need to have both offensive and defensive capabilities in space to safeguard Indian assets. The Indian Air Force, the IAF chief, said that India needs to, quote, capitalize on our initial successes in space and prepare ourselves for the future. Last month, General Bradley Chance Saltzman, the U.S. Chief of Space Operations, told a media group that space has, quote, fundamentally changed in just a few years due to a growing arms race, singling out China as the most challenging threat, followed by Russia. We are seeing a whole mix of weapons our strategic competitors produce. The most challenging threat is China, but also Russia. We must account that space is a contested domain that has fundamentally changed. The character of how we operate in space has to shift, and that's mostly because the weapons China and Russia have tested and, in some cases, operationalized. Remember when China sent a hypersonic object that then released a secondary hypersonic object? This is something we still have not done, or at least not publicly. It says, in fact, on March 14th, while testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee, General Saltzman explained the challenges he sees in a contested space domain and how the Space Force aims to prepare itself to meet those challenges. When describing space threats, it is important to account for the two kinds. First, threats from space assets, and second, threats to space assets. Threats from space, the general said, include both China's and Russia's robust space-based capabilities, which allow them to find, target, and attack U.S. military forces on land, sea, and in air. Both China and Russia continue to develop, field, and deploy a range of weapons aimed at U.S. space capabilities, the general said. The spectrum of threats to the U.S. space capabilities includes cyber warfare activities, electronic attack platforms, directed energy lasers, which, remember, just a couple years ago was theory, designed to blind or damage satellite sensors, ground-to-orbit missiles to destroy satellites, and space-to-space orbital engagement systems that can attack U.S. satellites in space, which all of which publicly they said that they not only have, but they are creating more and more of. Now China has a space station, and it felt like yesterday that they said that they were going to make one, and then all of a sudden they were sending up the third piece of it, and we were tracking the third piece of uncontrolled rocket coming down out of the sky. That was the third and final piece. That thing they said was a weapon. What if it's not a space station at all? Maybe it is a giant, directed energy laser. Now Russia is touting that they have a weapon that could wipe out all of the U.S. in one go. A unique weapon. What do you think they're talking about? I bet it's part of this whole China space station thing. Maybe they're working on it with Russia. A rod of God type of thing. And we've already seen things like this, we think, tested. Tianjin? That was so weird that virtually no one perished, but it destroyed this area. And if you saw what that area looked like, it looked something unworldly. Do you remember Tianjin, Dex? The Tianjin explosion was absolutely nuts. And
yes, that was huge.
Some folks believe that was something out of space. The two amphibious assault carriers that caught fire for 5 days, still there's no solid explanation for that. If you go, well, no, remember they caught that kid and he lit the ship on fire. No, he was cleared. It was funny, they covered it so much, but when the kid was cleared of all charges, the one that supposedly lit that fire, nobody talked about it. It was like one day, it was back page news. It's like we should be asking, how did that ship catch fire, and why did they blame that kid and patsy him for over a year? It doesn't make any sense. There was no evidence to back up that kid lit fires on that amphibious assault ship. And just happens to be that it was just a few months after the Chinese amphibious assault carrier, the exact same kind of ship that has a big, huge back area that can drop out boats and landing ships. That same exact ship was in port in China, lit fire, and stayed on fire for 4 or 5 days. A few months later, what happens? A U.S. Amphibious assault carrier, very specific kind of carrier, in port, catches fire and stays on fire for 5 days. It does not make sense. That was a tit for tat, and people need to know that. That's my opinion. What is yours? I mean, what are the odds that 2 amphibious assault carriers catch fire for 5 days straight, and then they really don't have a single explanation? It's not like the curtains caught fire. It doesn't make sense. So I think that there's already been a bunch of these things. Oh, and then possibly Beirut. That was an insane event as well. What are these things? We don't know. But I think there is going to be some sort of crazy event in our near future. Dex, go ahead.
Just a quick little update for what it's worth. We actually have used missiles from planes and from ships to take down satellites in space, and we've done this from an F-15 a couple of times. One time the satellite was malfunctioning, and they thought it had too much fuel on it, and it was going to crash anyway, so they decided to take it out in hopes that if any fuel wouldn't survive when it reached the ground. But we've also launched them from ships. And then, of course, as you've been talking about, there's been all sorts of speculations around laser or other ground-based systems that can do that as well. Even the Soviets have had that, what they call Terra 3, which is a ground-based laser ASAT system.
It's nuts. We're going to see the future conflict is going to be bonkers. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about Taiwan told to vacate embassy in Honduras after ties have been severed?
So these are, the countries are taking sides, picking sides, Honduras being one of them, which we've talked about in the past, how they were making deals with Xi. And now they've officially made their announcement that they were supporting China. And in doing so, the fallout of that is they told Taiwan, hey, you guys got to get out. Like, we can't recognize you anymore. So while you've had, diplomatic relations here, you've had offices here, you've had all of this, you got 30 days, you got to get out because we've chosen the side against you. And so this is, it's not like earth shattering, but it is indicative of the fact that, Xi is running around wielding a big stick and trying to garner as much support for his side and his power grab, if you want to call it that, across the globe and influence. And this is that type of influence. The more countries that sign up with him and take sides against the U.S., they'll start, working more deals, settling trade in the yuan, kicking out Taiwan, things like that will all be normal things that you're going to see these other countries start to do that are siding with Xi.
And as far as picking sides, we're watching all of these different countries pick, all of these different angles, and it's dividing. It's down the middle, and we're going to see more and more take their side. This is what it looks like when you are about to see a world war or a great war. Somebody said Dex is like Wikipedia. Well, he has the actual access to Wikipedia. So, see, the thing is no, don't get me wrong. Dex, you are incredibly smart, smartest person I know. but he can actually look things up while we're on. So it does help. We have Google too, or DuckDuckGo. So it helps to be able to use it.
It does. I'm not gonna lie. I do search.
Well,
stuff.
no, I think
Most people do.
You have all of this stuff
facts.
memorized.
Like sometimes we want to get facts out there, and we got to look it up real quick and see what it is.
Yeah. No, but we have a dedication to making it accurate, and that's one thing that's really important. That Dex, I've asked him to correct me if I say something wrong. You will see Dex literally correct me in the middle of the show, because I don't want anything that is inaccurate to go out. And if it is, I have always said we will correct it. And that's why if anybody tries to call us out and say this or that, I say if we make a mistake on this show, I will publicly correct it the very next show. I don't think we've ever, people can go back, they can do their homework and try to get us on something, but that way we can't be booted off for that reason. They want to boot people off for whatever reason they can, and they will use the stupidest excuses for it. So we look forward, we do the work beforehand so that doesn't happen. They're not going to catch us and say that we're, saying something that's absolutely incorrect or something. It just won't happen. I have lost all of my friends in this niche, and they've been taken off for the stupidest reasons. So there is somebody said Beirut. That's the reason why we say things the way we do. You don't go into an information war wearing a bright yellow outfit. You wear camo. If you're on the front lines, you don't wear a bright yellow vest. You go into a war wearing camo. That's what we do, only verbally, I guess. And then Xi Jinping's plan to annex Russian territory is there for all to see. It says the long-debated agreement on Power of Siberia 2, a massive pipeline project to pump gas from Western Siberia to China via Mongolia, has become emblematic of the one-sided and slightly abusive relationship between China and Russia since the start of the UK conflict. It is not good news for Moscow. So I wonder, and it almost sounds like they're trying to pit them against each other, right? Ahead of Xi Jinping's recent visit to Russia, Putin boldly announced that the pipeline deal was ready to be signed off, premature labeling it the deal of a century. But Xi, unmoved by such excessive zeal, declined to sign anything. No mention whatsoever of the POS 2. It's literally called the POS. They're going to have... So they could literally officially say, like, we're the ones who built that POS. Appears in the official statements Xi made during the meetings. In the final joint communique, all a disappointed Putin could comment was that more work still had to be done on study and approval. It is this context that we should read Xi's parting words to Putin, oracular and ominous, that referred to changes coming such as haven't been seen for a century. We can push forward together. And it says China watchers have been poring over these words for the last every nuance. But it's pretty clear Xi was framing himself as leader with Putin nominally by his side of a revisionist assault on the liberal world order. Beijing's vision for the People's Republic of China's centenary in 2049 is the global triumph of a fully developed, rich, and powerful China. This will not include sharing power with a chaotic Russian kleptocracy. The harder Xi focuses his efforts on realizing the China dream, the more implicably will his political and economic coercion be directed at Putin and Russia, with the weaker and more dependent both will become. So one thing to point out here is, in Xi's eyes, and there could be something where he is essentially offering Vlad something in return. Vlad may, he might say, you will be promised this much. If there is like this whole plan to take over the world, which it really seems like China is the forefront of that, where he offers Vlad, chunks of it, and whoever allies with them, they get a seat at the table, but China would be the leader. So there are parts of this I agree with. There are parts that I don't. Dex, as far as like them, they basically are trying to make it sound like Vlad is kind of his number 2 guy, and I guess there's a lot of things that would kind of say that that's correct, but they're essentially saying that they would take on the current world order and take over.
Right. And I think the other thing to look at here, and to pay attention to, is they're trying to surface something that a lot of people don't pay attention, that a lot of people don't know. So when you look at what Xi has done, he has taken Hong Kong, right? He wants to reclaim Taiwan. He wants his lands that are his. Well, one of those lands that was his is in the north, up in Mongolia, that was taken by the USSR. Okay. So, and by the way, if you look at what Putin is doing, he's trying to reclaim territories in UKR. So this deal that Putin is so excited to sell to Xi is basically saying, I'm using the land we took from you. We're making oil on it, and I'm going to sell it to you. So you're going to pay me for the oil you used to own, but I own it now. That doesn't sit really well with somebody like Xi. He looks at that as his land, and at some point he probably looks at it as, I want to own that. I'm not going to pay you for that oil. It's my land. It should be mine. You took it a long time ago. That's the picture they're trying to paint here. And you know, rightfully so, looking at everything else Xi has done or said or claimed, it probably does make sense. And this is one of those little known gray areas that probably can create some sort of rift between the two countries if it gets to that point. But it certainly doesn't make a lot of good business sense to, you know, to sort of like let's let Canada take, you know, North Dakota and South Dakota, and then we start buying oil from them off of North Dakota and South Dakota and paying Canada for it. That's not good business sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense, right? Somebody said Ganda BS. Yeah, no, and there's this whole narrative that, and I don't know if it's aimed towards them or towards the civilians that are reading it in the Western countries or something, but I guess I don't always see the point of it, and we're not supposed to. It's supposed to be Ganda, so we don't know exactly what the reason for it is. You know, you almost think, like, is it to make Putin resent Xi or something, like, you know, saying, I don't get it. There's so much back and forth. The entire world's media is all connected now. Since the internet and since this kind of evolution of how our media works, the entire world's connected. That means if it was 90% Ganda before, now it's 90% and it's global. So we have to fish through all of it and say, this is common sense, and that's not. And then the U.S. is to stop exchanging nuclear data with Russia after Moscow's treaty suspension. Well, it seems almost a little bit late for that, since they have pulled out of almost everything else. But it says that the United States has told Russia it will cease exchanging data on its nuclear forces. So, and following Moscow's refusal to do so, the White House said on Tuesday, calling this a response to Russia suspending participation in the New START nuclear arms treaty. It says, while Russian President Vladimir Putin has not formally withdrawn from the treaty, which limits the two sides' deployed strategic nuclear arsenals, on February 21st, suspension imperils the last pillar of the U.S.-Russian arms control. Between the two of them, the United States and Russia hold nearly 90% of the world's nuclear warheads, enough to destroy the planet many times over. Under international law, the United States has the right to respond to Russia's breaches of the New START treaty by taking proportionate and reversible countermeasures in order to induce Russia to return to compliance with its obligations. Basically, scare them back into it, right? Or to freak them out that they're doing something, right? I don't think that's going to happen, though. I don't know. Do you guys think that it really does point towards that there is something about to happen in the nuclear aspect? Possibly a tactical nuke that goes off somewhere, or some event that starts this whole, thing off? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Before we move on, I want to quickly point you guys over. If you haven't already, go over, check out marfooglenews.com/prep. Many people do not have more than 3 days of food in their fridge or in their house at all. If you want to not be one of those people, go over and check out My Patriot Supply at marfooglenews.com/prep. You can get freeze-dried food with a 25-year shelf life at a huge discount. There's $200 off right now on the 3-month supply, which that way, again, if you have a couple people in your house, that's a month and a half for 2 people. That's a month for 3 people, and so on. If you get a couple of those, you'll actually be good for a minute. That's going to last 25 years. It's going to sit through 25 years of inflation. I can only imagine in 5 years, in fact, freeze-dried food has tripled in the last 3 years. If you could think about where this might be priced in 25 years from now when you might need it, it would be insane. So if you do get it, some folks look at it as an investment as far as having that backed up. You might even be able to use it in 10 years if we have hyperinflation and you go to buy eggs at the store and they're not $12 like they are now, but $2,000. It sounds crazy, but places like Venezuela lived through that. So if you do want to check it out, go to marfooglenews.com/prep. And not only will you be helping our independent news channel, but you'll also be getting a giant discount. They also have other stuff like anti-radiation tablets if that's something you're worried about. They have Alexapure, the water filtration system that gets rid of 99.9% of stuff and does a whole lot of water at once. Again, that's a gravity-fed water filtration system that gets rid of all of the nasty contaminants. So make sure to go check it out, marfooglenews.com/prep. And then Russia resorts to limited use of chemical munitions, UKR says. The enemy is using chemical munitions, dropping explosives with chloroprysin, if I said that right, from unmanned aerial vehicles. It says, according to him, one test drop of such explosives was recorded on March 23rd. The next day, the invaders dropped 2 explosive charges, and yesterday they dropped 6. Dmytro Kivsky emphasized that these weapons are not conventional. If it falls into a trench or a dugout, you need to have a gas mask to move away from that place because it causes both vomiting and tears, he noted. But there's also mustard gas ammunition for what we need chemical protection suits. The speaker noted that the first drone with such a payload was shot down a month ago in Zaporizhia region. So they are now using it resorts to limited use, but they are supposedly using these different chemicals. Hopefully that doesn't escalate into something else if it is true, if it is even true. That is coming from the UKR side. A plan to lift the fog of war in UKR, and it's in the cards. Dex, do you want to go over that and then comment on the last story as well?
Yeah, certainly. So this whole notion of chemical, this is going to be one of those categories that's going to put them into the camp of Geneva Conventions and war crimes. So this could, I tell people, get your the salt lick out. You need it right now when it comes to this stuff. Doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean it's false. I'm not saying either one, but this is coming from UKR, and they're making the claim against Russia, and there's not necessarily an independent third party that's gone in and validated these claims. We would see that this would definitely turn into one of those types of things that would be brought up as something in one of those international courts. Not that they would use the ICC, but something like that. So that was my comment on it. Now, the fog of war, or as they're calling it, with the cards, this is kind of crazy. So the Pentagon has distributed playing cards, and no, they didn't put pretty pictures on them. They put the equipment on them. So they've basically distributed pictures with 52 different NATO-made tanks, armored personnel carriers, trucks, artillery pieces, and other weapon systems, plus 2 jokers, obviously, in the deck of cards, so that the Ukrainian people that are playing, or anybody that's in that conflict in UKR, can be playing cards and learning the equipment that they might be not necessarily up against, but running into. And so they want them to be able to identify the equipment that's used on their side. So kind of an interesting piece of I guess, educational or marketing material that's being distributed by our Pentagon to the folks in UKR.
Jill, and by the way, mods, don't delete that kind of stuff. So Jill says, learn to read. So that's just a rude comment. Just want to let you guys know there's a lot of people that don't understand. So that name, by the way, I just want to point this out. Look at this name. I would love for any of you to read this on the spot the first time right. Even Fox News anchors screw these things up. But besides reading, yes, I can read, and I can actually read pretty well. In fact, anybody that watches most nights can see me tackle new words I've never seen before really well. But I will tell you this. Try to do that after 12 hours of a construction job and then doing this and do it live on the spot. I would love to put some people in their place and have them host a show like this and do it all live. I am not good some days. And no, I do not say Russian names well because I'm not used to reading them. Also not used to reading the ingredients on the back of, chemicals. Chloropicrin? That's how I guess it's said. But if I mispronounce words, I will point it out that I do not know it. Again, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed. But again, I guess what's the point of that comment? Just to be rude? If you want to take over, do your own show. Start your own YouTube channel from scratch. Do it on your breaks and try to get to the same place. It's not as easy as you think it is. Again, people do not understand what goes into this, and that is very clear with a comment like that. But yeah, I am not, again, the best reader in the world, but I do have education and I can read. So thank you so much for that. I just think that makes you look absolutely absurd when you say things like that. It makes you just look rude. So again, go ahead and start your own channel. Read articles, 50 of them in a row, and then see if you can do that after a 12-hour workday. I guarantee it will be around the same quality. And then a plan to lift the fog of war in Ukraine. It's in the cards. With billions of dollars in weapons, the West has sought to give UKR the upper hand in its war with Russia, but the dizzying array of arms headed to the battlefield could make it hard for troops to tell friends from foes. So the U.S. Army has come up with a new training tool seemingly designed for the conflict, a set of playing cards with pictures of 52 different NATO-made tanks, armored personnel carriers, and trucks, artillery pieces, and other weapon systems, plus 2 jokers. The idea, said Major Andrew Harshberger, a spokesman for Army Training and Doctrine Command, is enabled soldiers to quickly identify enemy equipment and distinguish the equipment from friendly forces. It says the Pentagon has issued similar decks in the past to help forces familiarize themselves with the elements of warfare over a hard-fought game of spades, hearts, or even poker. Each card has a picture of weapon system along with its names, the country where it's manufactured, and its export destinations and its main armament. Earlier decks have featured Chinese, Russian, and Iranian military equipment. The idea goes back to at least World War II when a pack showed fighter planes used by allies and adversaries. I think this is really interesting. I've never heard of this before this, and I actually did not know that they did this. It's incredibly smart. If you think about it, there's not much to do when you are serving, and cards is one of the go-to things that a lot of soldiers do in their off time. Not everywhere they'll have a TV or they might not even have access to proper books depending on where they are. So that's pretty smart. It's kind of like they know that they're going to be playing cards and poker, might as well be learning while they're doing it. Dex, did you think that was interesting that they actually do that? And it probably works really well.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly something for them to use while they're passing their time. And I'm sure they've got a lot of downtime in between volleys of munitions flying back and forth.
Yeah, well, and it would make sense to also do that for pilots and things. If there's been so many of friendly vehicles hit by airstrikes, you'd think maybe they would make one for a top-down version. And then Russia fires supersonic anti-ship missile at mock target in the Sea of Japan. It makes you think if something like this is going to happen in the real world here soon. Russia's Navy fired supersonic anti-ship missiles at a mock target in the Sea of Japan, the Russian Defense Ministry said on Tuesday. In the waters of the Sea of Japan, missile ships of the Pacific Fleet fired Musket cruise missiles at a mock enemy sea target. It said in a statement on its Telegram account, the target, located at a distance of 100 kilometers or 62 miles, was successfully hit by a direct hit from 2 Musket cruise missiles. It said that the P-270 Musket missile, which has the NATO reporting name of SSN-22 Sunburn, is a medium-range supersonic cruise missile of Soviet origin, capable of destroying a ship within the range of up to 120 kilometers or 75 miles. The firing of the missiles comes a week after 2 Russian strategic bomber planes capable of carrying nuclear weapons flew over the Sea of Japan for more than 7 hours in what Moscow said was a planned flight. It makes you think, too, what information is above our heads that Japan knows about and why they changed their constitution virtually overnight to now they are not only a self-defense force, they are now an offensive force, and they're turning their military budget upside down to where now they're going to be in the top 5 military budgets in the world. This is what a world war before World War looks like. That's my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Speaking of which, thank you, Joe, that you know. Appreciate that. Thank you for your support. Carol, thank you for the super stickers. Again, always the cutest emojis there. Thank you. Justin True says, fear is the only weapon of control they have. If you are not afraid, you can't be controlled. Rid yourself of fear and consecrate courage. Be free. And then Justin True, thanks again. And if you guys don't know Justin True, he's on our friends page, marfooglenews.com/friends under the creators. He is in Hawaii, and he has actually given us great information on the tons of really great stories in the past, like when Russian surveillance ships were off the coast. Him and his family were there fishing, and they ended up being some of the first to see it before the news covered it. And then we ended up calling into our show. Psalm... Oh, and tons of other ones. You guys know. You can tell, everybody who's been here a long time can tell folks about them. The Psalm 27:1, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. And whom shall I be afraid? God bless. Justin True, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And God bless you as well. And another thing, for new people that are here or might have been ported over from the other channel, the word fear-mongering, we don't even use that here. If you do think that's fear-mongering, I would say reflect yourself and really look at this stuff. And the more you follow it, you'll realize this isn't to scare you. This is to give you, what's real. Fear-mongering was a created word. Fear-mongering itself was created as propaganda. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that they have a stigma to preppers or anybody in a prepping niche. There is a stigma around it that you are crazy. That is on purpose. They do not want you self-reliant. They don't want you self-sufficient, and they want you afraid. So when they do put a headline out, it is going to shock you and freak you out. For people that watch my show every day, this stuff doesn't scare them. So if you are afraid and say this is fear-mongering, that means you are afraid of this. Most of our viewers are not. When you are desensitized to their fear campaign, then you're not afraid anymore. You're just looking at the practical solutions to what is going on and what you can do about it. That's something that most of us here are already on. Most everybody here has preps and has a solution to almost any of the really scary fear-mongering problems, and they're not afraid anymore. Just like, if you're if you're afraid of dying, you get life insurance. If you're afraid of getting a car accident, you get car insurance. If you're afraid of getting robbed, you get apartment or rental insurance. You should have the same with food and water and everything else, and also a plan with your family. Ray the Way, my theory is the reason we left all of that equipment behind is because we need to arm the terrorists in order to have a plausible cause to go to the Middle East again. A last-ditch attempt to save the dollar. Ray the Way, you could be right. That would be very sad if we end up there again. And then Joe that love and hugs, the only news I use. Thank you. And David Wad, thank you. Carol, and then again, Fairies of Venus, thank you so much for your support, and thank you for supporting Independent. And they claim that they shot down a U.S. smart bomb, but on both sides, there's people saying that this is complete BS. Russia claims to have shot down a smart bomb reportedly supplied by to UKR forces by the U.S. to double Kiev's battlefield firing range. The ground-launched small-diameter bomb, or GLSDB, was fired on a rocket and then glides to its target, guided by GPS satellite at 150-kilometer range, around double that of the U.S.-supplied HIMARS that Kiev deployed to successfully last year. UKR has had long sought the weapons to hit Russian command centers, supply lines, and other targets deep behind the front line. Washington is thought to have begun supplying them this year. The Russian statement said that air defense forces had shot down the GLSDB within the last 24 hours without saying where this had taken place. So, we don't know if that actually occurred, but we'll see as it goes along. And then Moscow elite in a panic over tape blasting Putin as Satan. So they put in these words like in a panic. Now, anybody that questions this, if you question a very directed headline like this, they say, "Oh, you're carrying this person's water." First of all, everybody here should not be on the left, right, this country, that country. People should be looking for the truth. And most people know during war times, there are whole departments dedicated to wartime propaganda. To say that they're panicking over a tape that contains somebody saying that he is Satan, basically implying that not everybody likes Putin, doesn't really surprise me. I bet you there's tapes on our side and every other side of people that don't like their boss. Dex, do you see what I mean when I say that? Like every country is going to have people that are probably right below the leaders saying, I don't like that guy. I mean, shoot, the T-Man administration, it was the whole time.
Yeah, certainly. And in this case, this is a prominent Moscow music producer and a former senator. So these are people that probably have some sort of following, or in one case maybe has more ties on the entertainment industry, so people might take a word from them. But it's basically a 35-minute phone call that was leaked with just tons of profanity laced tirades against Putin. They were basically saying, he's screwed us over, our children, their futures, their destinies, etc. And this has gone out everywhere there, and it's becoming a mainstream leak, so to speak. And I guess they feel they have to do some damage control with it. I don't know these players. I don't know the inner workings of societal influence there. I'm assuming if they're really scrambling to deal with it, then they must be influential enough to cause an issue.
If you look at the majority of what the Russian celebrities are saying, a ton of them support the conflict. A ton of them are rooting to actually go after Western countries, which is pretty terrifying. With the new AI voice technology, and I think people need to take that into account when you hear any just audio tape that now leaks. For the last few months, even regular people have the ability to take 3 seconds of anybody and then turn an audio clip into some juicy thing, right? And you cannot tell it different from the real person. Even a lisp or the way they talk, the lowering and the raising at the end of a sentence, it picks that stuff up. I don't know how it does its magic, but it does it. So I don't know what's going on with this, but wonder what's going to happen. Does that person, does that producer, or whoever these people are, do they deny saying it? I want to know if they're saying that they didn't say it. What do they do to those people after that happens, Or do they do nothing? We'll see. If you want to protect yourself against EMP, go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. You can put this in your car in less than 10 minutes and protect yourself against electromagnetic pulse and a CME, coronal mass ejections. If a Carrington level event happens now, again, you could protect your vehicle so you can get it to wherever you need to go to bug out, or to get home to bug in at marfooglenews.com/EMP. It grounds the signal before it can fry your device, car, house, RV, motorcycles, boats, whatever you can think of, they most likely have a device for. And that's at marfooglnews.com/EMP. All right, Dex, let's go over the web only. There's lots of crazy stuff down here.
Yes, there is. There's a lot going on. So head over to marfooglnews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, and scroll down to this yellow bar called Overflow. If you're on YouTube and Rumble, just open up the description, click on the show notes link. It'll take you right here. Look, the rest of the story, everything that we have, or supporting articles in addition to what we've already covered. So it's all right here. So we definitely have updates with France and what's going on. So there's a few articles there, and there's some really crazy stuff happening with the Nashville incident. So there's plenty of updates there. If you haven't seen what's been coming out, it's all there. And then some, and you can probably find even more crazier stuff on Twitter. Very interesting. One of the federal agencies is going after Matt Taibbi, and the House is actually calling them on it, asking why. If for those of you who don't know, he's one of the reporters that was part of the Twitter files. We do have a lot of the political updates, not much, just a little bit of what's going on. They postponed again any potential, charges. There's an AI image going around of the pontiff wearing a Balenciaga jacket, and it fooled a lot of people, but there's plenty of these AI images out there fooling people now. So if you want to see that, it's on there. Plenty of other things, including additional updates with what's going on in UKR. That's there too. So get the rest of the story. Just go head over to marfooglnews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up the show notes link in the description.
Yeah, I saw that shared all over Twitter. It looks super real. I mean, I thought it was just a funky style. I didn't look at it and think Balenciaga. I just thought it was one of those big puffy jackets. But everybody ended up sharing that all over Twitter. If you haven't followed me over there at Marfoogle, make sure to go for the checkmarked one, the official Marfoogle News. And make sure to follow Dex at Dex. What is the handle? Your actual handle?
Real Dex James.
At Real Dex James. Make sure to follow us both over on Twitter, and make sure to join us. Pretty soon we will be doing another Spaces where we invite just regular people to pop up on the stage and talk about things. We'll be working on that as well. That was really fun. And then pretty soon here I will have a new mixer. We'll have calls back. We'll have all sorts of great stuff. So, and guests. Now we have the capability to have guests video-wise, but we still need to fix the Roboto issue. So, unfortunately, everybody, we got to do things at one step at a time. So thank you guys. Love you. Dex, thank you so much.
Much love. Great job, brother.
I want to say a special thank you to everybody over on DLive. Thank you, Company 328. I appreciate your support. Yobi, evening all. Hello from Cookeville, Tennessee. Company 328. Ha ha ha. I love Marf Speaks, says Michelle K. Yeah, exactly. People have come up with the word for how I read. And it doesn't start with stupid. I don't know. I don't think it does. Michelle K, thank you. Company 328, thank you for tuning Jaginis tonight. Appreciate all that you, Dex, and the mods do to bring us the truth concerning current events. Well, thank you. Vault, thank you. Beer Juice, thank you for gifting out badges to Birdbanger. And for everybody else, Kimbria, thank you. You guys have a wonderful night. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. Now it is time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. And what was it? Louis Armstrong. You asked for it earlier, but outro. Check out your mods over at marfooglnews.com/friends. China was taking a lot of shots over the bow, bringing you the full circle, then I bring you back around. I was getting ready for the Armageddon happening now. I will tell you what I didn't deal and exactly how China was taking a lot of shots over the bow, bringing you the full circle, then I bring you back around. Happy, and it's the end of the world. I said I'm happy. it's the end of the world. I said I'm happy, and it's the end of the world. I said no. I said. We're gonna make a fresh one here in 2 seconds. I love you with a warm. Sure as hell gonna get you. So I am so disappointed. I made a song today, and I don't normally consider my songs good. And I was so pissed. I thought about even recording it onto Streamlabs because I was worried that the power cord might come out and it might get deleted. I thought I saved at least the base of it, and I didn't. And I thought, out of all of the stuff I do, I don't often make, it's probably 1 out of 30 that end up good. And I deleted it. The cord pulled out because I jerked the thing and it pulled the cord out, and I almost cried right before the show. I was so mad. Dex knows. I was so sad. I thought I could find it. I only have 95 slots to make songs, and I thought it was here. So I will search for just a second longer. Because when it restarted, I didn't know what song it was on. I would love to get the RC505 Mark II. This thing's 10 years old, and one of the faders is completely broken. Nope, I think it's gone. Marfoogle news, only news I choose. Marfoogle news, only news I choose. I got my own way, I'm never gonna see it down. I know I love the way my family circles us around. I got my friends, I got my foes, and I am the only one who knows. I've got my own bone. I say love on a little free man. I shone on a black on a Chicago. A bundle of goats, everyone knows that we've got a steam blow. I said, on the boat, me a 6'9", a Susan Big and a Mr. Fine, a Jennifer Sammy, I'm a Martin Moore. I'm on dom dibbity dom dibbity dom. A booyah, a f-oo, a ooh, a Randy man, oh. Rachel Queen, Katie Mees, bam, dibbity dom, dibbity dom. We blow the stuff off, so go, I go.